A very good evening and warm welcome to all the participants. I take pleasure in welcoming all of you to this 152nd WiseViews Leadership Conversation. We have with us a very distinguished academic and well-known personality in the country, Madam Santishree Dhulipudi Pandit. Good evening and welcome, ma'am. All the participants join me in cordially welcoming you to this session, ma'am. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak. Very quickly, I will do a brief introduction and then come back to request you for opening remarks. Let me share my screen, please. So WiseViews Leadership Conversations we hold every Friday, and we have reached a milestone of 152 with Indian Knowledge Systems, the Gaps and the Roadmap, helmed by Professor Santishree Dhulipudi Pandit, the trailblazing Vice Chancellor of JNU. This introduction and the opening remarks of ma'am will be for about 25 minutes put together. Then we'll have 40 minutes of Q&A. I take pleasure in introducing ma'am. She was appointed as the first woman and alumnus Vice Chancellor of India's top university, JNU. Over 3.5 decades of her career, beginning with lecturer at the Goa University from 1988, and in 1991, joining the University of Pune. Previously, in the Department of Politics and Public Administration, holding additional charge of Director International Center since 2001 to 2007. Professor Pandit served as Vice President of IPSA and President, Member of Government of Indian National Committees like NAC, CSIR, ICSSR, ICCR, IIAS, many other committees. President of India has nominated to several central universities as his nominee on selection committees. Member of academic councils of University of Pune and several other universities of India. A subject expert and upgradation of syllabus, guide and consultant for students appearing for civil services and career counseling. She held positions on several academic and professional bodies. She has been active in student and cultural organizations, connected with the working of a few social service institutions, was the founding member of 2 organizations working for society, New Life for India Movement and Youth Forum for Gandhian Studies. Very impressive, ma'am. Several publications to her credit. She completed several projects, both major and minor. 30 students so far have completed their PhD under Professor Pandit's supervision and 8 MPhils. She had several noteworthy publications, articles in the Hindu, News Today, and various other publications. She published several book reviews in Newsquest, Freedom First, Bounce Journal, International Studies, so on and so forth. Several awards, I'll name a few of them. Youth Forum for Gandhian Studies, Chennai, Women Educator Award. WiseTech's Award for Women Leaders in the Next Decade, Education 2004. World Peace Award 2022, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Award 2023, Business India Women Top Women Educationists, all 3 years, 22, 23, 24. India Today 2023 Top Women Leaders in Education, the Week Top University 2024. Several such awards to her credit. Professor Pandit educated in Chennai at the Presidency College, both BA and MA topper and gold medalist. She completed MPhil and PhD in International Politics from the School of International Studies, JNU, postdoctorate in Peace and Conflict Studies from the Uppsala University, Sweden. She knows many languages. Some of them are Telugu, Tamil, Marathi, Hindi, Sanskrit, English. She can understand Kannada, Malayalam, and Konkani as well. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much once again. With folded hands, I greet you and welcome you to this leadership conversation. And I'll take 1 more minute to introduce my esteemed colleague, Professor R. Prasad. He's the Senior Director of Academic Wing at the ICFAI Group. He brings to the table a rich experience of 3 decades. He earlier played the roles of a successful entrepreneur. He was also into the corporate world and now an academic at ICFAI. He holds BTech from IIT Bombay and PGDM from IIM Kolkata. Great pleasure in welcoming you, Professor Prasad. Thank you so much. And ma'am, we are all set to hear from you on the Indian knowledge systems. You're very passionate about this topic. We have heard you earlier also, but for this audience, which is comprising several academics, several distinguished individuals from all walks of life who have joined, I greet them and welcome them. And for our benefit, let's have a very good discussion and conversation on Indian knowledge systems. Welcome once again, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, respected Professor Prasad and Professor Rao, and dear faculty and students. I'm extremely happy because I know ICFAI is a very eminent university, especially specialized in finance and management. And I'm so happy that I've been able to talk to you today. Basically, the first thing I would like to say is the reason that I am for a country like India, when it's on the path to become, it's the 5th largest economic power in the world. Any country that wants to be the 3rd largest economic power needs a narrative. You see China. China is having its own knowledge systems. They have their own theory on different aspects. You may ask, see, when I'm talking about the Indian knowledge systems, it's not just Sanskrit. It can be also from regional languages like Tamil and Telugu, which are, what to say, traditional languages. You can also have from Buddhism, Jainism, and the Hindu traditions. What is the reason that I'm saying it, that you need something that is original? There is no harm. Knowledge is universal, but any power that wants to become a major power to reckon with, because I believe that economic power is substantiated by political power. I am one who believes in international political economy, that money and power go together. Somebody who wants to, earn money has to understand the structures of power. If you don't understand the structures of power, you'll be a very poor business analyst. So I believe economics, finance is very much part of public policy. And public policy is made by your political leaders. That is my first, I would like to keep before all of you, my first proposition. My second proposition is, India has had the first step in liquidating a people is to erase its memory. So we have had invasions where many of our structures were destroyed. Then we had the British who did it much more smartly, where they told us that they are superior to us, that they called it the white man's burden, the civilizing mission. Maybe we were much more civilized than them. Then, as most of you know, they created the Aryan invasion theory, one of the biggest hoax and frauds of history. Because please remember, today carbon dating, science does not lie. Raki Gargi and Kiladi in Tamil Nadu, excavations have shown that the Indian civilization is more than 8,000 years old. So 8,000 years ago, what were the Europeans doing? The Americans were not there. Americans were only about 300 years or 250 years. They were picking up stones. So how can somebody civilize us when we are much more ancient than? So if you see very clearly, let us be a little scientific. So what is it when you try to erase somebody's memory? What do? Destroy its books, its culture, its history. So you burn the books, like burning of Nalanda. So that, and then culture, where you say that, oh, you're so primitive, you're backward, without even understanding it. You have many Western scholars there are many who are serious, but most of them come to India for 3 months or 6 months or at the most 1 year, and then write a book as they don't know India very well. There is a joke that I used to always tell my students. If you stay in India for 6 months, you can write a book. You stay for 2 years, you will be confused. You stay for 5 years, you will never write a book because it's so complex. Because one proposition you make doesn't work in any other state. So the diversity is so much that people who come from Abrahamic faiths, which believes in uniformity, it's very difficult for them to understand that you have a civilization where dharma is not equal to religion. Dharma is a way of life, and the dharmic way of life is very different from the Abrahamic faiths. Why? Because for Abrahamic faiths, order is very important. If order is not there, they get very worked up. Whereas for dharma or the Sanatana dharma or the dharmic faiths, chaos is creative. The more chaos we have, we think it is to the cosmos as well. So if you read the Tao of Physics, Fitzo Krapra said that both Hindu philosophy and Buddhist philosophy is very close to quantum physics. You'll ask me, okay, take science. Most of you must have heard the greatest mathematician, the world has produced was Srinivasa Ramanujan. What did he say? He wrote equations which even Professor Hardy could not solve. And today also we say that he's a man who knew infinity. And when Professor Hardy asked him, how the hell are he? And do most of you know, he never went into any college or university. He was a 12th standard fail. Except mathematics, he did very badly in English. But he was a genius. And many people say he learnt it from his mother, who was very good at calculating horoscopes, which does a lot of Vedic intricate mathematics. And you know, in India, we mix science with spiritualism. We are not anti-technology, anti-science. And here he said, Goddess Bhagavati comes and writes on my tongue. And in the morning, I get up and write that equation. So if you see, we are a civilization, unlike the Abrahamic faiths, where we never said the world is flat and a woman is born out of the bone of of a male. We never made such anti-scientific statements. And you can be an agnostic and an atheist and still be a Sanatana Dharmi. So this is where you have to see that we have a knowledge system that is very, very different from that of the West. So can the West pass judgments on our civilization? The difficulty is their methodology is very restrictive. Their methodology is binary. Binary means what? God, Satan, or good, bad. If you're not with me, you're against me. Whereas in the Indian traditions, we have areas of gray. For example, take Ravana. He's an anti-hero. He's not a villain. He had one trait that made him, lose his life, but he was a great Shiva Bhakta. He wrote the Shiva Tandav Stotra. If most of you know that, if you hear it, it was written by Ravana. So in India, the concept of the anti-hero is because we do not see good and bad in black and white. We see it in concentric circles. For us, it is not either or. So this is my second proposition I would lay it before you. And the third is, then once your culture, your books and your history is destroyed, then the colonizer or the hegemonic culture, what do? They write new books, manufacture a new culture, invent a new history. Before long, that nation will begin to forget what it is and what it was. The struggle of all human beings against power is the struggle of memory against forgetting. So it is this memory that I believe has to be revitalized, reimagined, and reconstructed. And for that, we do have a very strong traditional, or what I call the Indian knowledge systems. And for us, it is diverse. See, we are the only civilization that accepts diversity. Ekam sat vipraha bahuda vadanti. That means truth is one. But there are several paths to it. We accept that. We don't, we don't say that all of you should look alike, all of you should speak this. We celebrate diversity. And that is extraordinarily important when we are talking about Indian knowledge. Now, if you ask me, madam, what are the examples you would get? I would basically say the Sanskrit, where you have the Upanishads, where you have women scholars. See, I would say patriarchy began because of the rise of organized faiths, because there the God was male, everything was male. Whereas in the Indian or Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, as we called, or Indian knowledge systems, for us, the feminine was always exalted. For example, Matru Devo Bhava, then Pitru Devo Bhava, and then Acharya Dev. So the image of the mother, which you see even in the Indus Valley civilization and others, is a very strong narrative that comes from very old. And if you see in the Upanishads, you have great scholars like Maitreyi, Gargi, Lopamudra, who literally contested with Yajnavalkya and other sages. Meaning knowledge also was accepted to be a pursuit of the feminine. Or for that matter, most of you know Adi Shankaracharya, who's seen as the person who united Hinduism from Kaladi to Kedarnath. The way he set up mutts, when he had a debate with Mandala Mishra, who was the judge, his wife Bharati. That means the knowledge of a woman was as good as the knowledge of any male. if she or he pursued it. And if you see, unlike the West, for us, the most powerful goddesses of the Indira cabinet portfolios were with women. Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge. Why don't we reinterpret Saraswati today? She redefined marriage. She redefined the concept you talked that I should have the power over my body because she did not have children. If you read, she's very interesting as a character and we can reinvent her. Or for that matter, Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. And third, you have Parvati, the goddess of power. And the Indian gods are named after their wives' names. They're not named otherwise. Like you have Lakshmi Pati, Sitapati, Umapat, there is no Patni. You might say, madam, these are philosophers, but do even the Abrahamic faiths, whom we think are universal, do they even have this? So what I'm saying is, we are the ones who have to reinterpret this. And this is extraordinarily important for you people who are, you might say, from finance and other management. Do you know Sukracharya? I recently got a book written by a young scholar. He told me Sukracharya was very good at accounting and finance. And he has written a book on it, which greatly surprised me because I didn't know that. And he has quoted from Sanskrit sources and original sources. Or even take the Sangam literature. You have in Tamil a lot of literature from Purananur onwards, which is there. Or even Buddhism. All of you, because ICFAI is in Hyderabad, the Telugu should know that we had the greatest of the Buddhist scholars called Nagarjuna, whose concept of Shunyata has greatly enamored the West and also quantum physics. Because if you see, classical Buddhism is very, very important. He says, since all is empty, all is possible. See, the statement itself makes it very, very profound. And if you see the Buddhist philosophical foundations, especially classical Indian Buddhism and his middle path, which we said don't go to either extremes, which has also been the part of India's non-aligned policy. Even in science, take architecture. Most of you know that the Sun Temple and the Somnath Temple, they had the Shivalinga there. And here the Surya Bhagwan, literally suspended, I'm told, in mid-air due to magnets. Have we ever studied this technology, how they did it? Or go to the Brihadishwara temple. You have the huge Vimana. And how did they take it up? I'm told there are no granites around Tanjavur. And if you see to a large extent, how did this architectural wonders do? Today, all of you know we have IITs and everywhere we have top engineers coming out. Most of our bridges break after 5 years or 10 years. You have these huge structures done which don't have cracks. Are we able to connect the past with the present? And this is very important. The West has done it. They have done it with Greek philosophy. Christianity became so distinct, and even their Renaissance, from where science they separated from religion, which we already did in the beginning of our civilization. If you see that on all this, we have not done this hermeneutics because unfortunately, we were an oral civilization. Shruti and Smriti and many of our written texts were either lost or later found. Even Arthashastra, most of you know, was found only in 1923, which is seen as a major treatise on economics and political science. And you have other scholars like Vidyaranya, who was the founder of the Vijayanagar Empire. And he was also thought to be a great, not only a philosopher, Shankaracharya, meaning an Advait scholar, but also a great public policy, a philosopher who was able to build a major empire. So that is what I'm trying to bring to all of you, that it is very necessary that if we are aspiring to be the world's third largest economic powerhouse from number 5, the structures of power have to be understood. And for power, narrative power becomes very important. And here, before the West tells us how great we are, because they don't understand us from our perspective. Our mind is very different. Indians are very happy with complexity, with chaos, with everything, not others. So this thing, so my appeal to most students is, and to scholars and to academics, we are a knowledge-based civilization. So it is very important that we try to connect these. We work in an interdisciplinary manner. in a multidisciplinary manner. It is not to, to put down anybody else, but to add to the existing knowledge, different narratives at the global level. I would only end saying that if we do this greatly, we will be able to enrich the world, both economy as well as politics, as well as the India as a civilization state. I see India as a civilization state and not as a nation state. And I think we have a lot to give to the world. Please remember, when America in the 20th century became the world power, it was done through narratives. Two disciplines are American discipline. One is management and maybe finance and management, and international relations. International relations was created to legitimize the United States of America as a global power, which it got after 1945. And hence, if India was thinking of being in the top, we would also require knowledge systems to back up our economic and political power, so that we will become a multifaceted or a holistic power. And I believe knowledge is the best way. I would end with Michael Foucault. See, we were taught that knowledge is power. He said power is knowledge. So please understand, if you have to get power, knowledge, control over knowledge or superiority of knowledge becomes extraordinarily important. I once again thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to present my views, and I would be happy for a discussion, question, answer session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. I must tell you that in such a short span of time, you have touched upon varied topics, but essentially three important things for us to now sharply focus on the next part of the conversation. That India is very diverse, unlike many other countries. Diversity is at the core, and that lack of order or chaos is actually cosmic, and it's what is required. And we thrive in this kind of diversity, which is not understood well by Westerners or outsiders. That's the first one. Second thing is, if India has to grow on the path that is going, we need to build our economic power and political power, and we need that narrative. And that narrative can fuel from the IKS, the Indian knowledge system. That is fantastic. And the third and the most important thing is, how do we connect the past to the present? What is the benefit of this Indian knowledge system that we can give to the world and to our country ourselves? One of the postulates, one of the propositions that you mentioned is that we emerge and rise to become a civilization state rather than a nation state. That's pretty interesting. We'll discuss more about it in the next few questions and conversations. I must once again acknowledge the fact that we are joined by very, very distinguished individuals from around the country, from all walks of life. None of them, I think very few of them are our students, but they are working professionals, scholars, entrepreneurs, people from civil society, so on and so forth. I welcome all of them to this wonderful conversation that is about to begin. Over to you, Professor Prasad. Kindly start the cluster number 1.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, ma'am, for initiating the discussion with your thoughts and more importantly, the need for Indian knowledge systems. The first query I'll have is slightly personal. You have risen, you had a fairly well-accomplished career, and you're the first woman Vice Chancellor of JNU. Can you share the key challenges and motivations in your journey to success? And if you're able to relate it to IKS, all the more better, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I would say that my success is both 99% hard work, but 1% I would say that it is also the blessings of whether if you believe in God, find God, or you can say good luck, depending on whether you believe in a God or not. I would leave, number 2, I would say there are a lot of challenges, midlife challenges. But let me tell you, it's because of 2 people in my life, and both men. So I don't believe in the so-called women's liberation again, and that the way the West puts man and woman in opposition to each other. I think my father was a single parent because I lost my mother when I was only a 15 days child. My father never married again. He could have married. He was just 39 when I was born. He was an IAS officer. He could have easily, but he never married because for me, and whatever I am today is because of him. So I owe my success to the way my father brought me up. And he made me learn Sanskrit, sir. I was in Chennai. I studied in Chennai. So Tamil and English was what we were taught at school. But my father made me learn Telugu because he said Telugu is your mother tongue. You should know it. And even write and read as well as Sanskrit. And that led me to, reading of certain texts, which I did. Though at that time I was very reluctant reader. 1 hour at night I used to read, so that helped me with this. And later I would tell people that as a woman you have to be 20 times better than your male colleague. I agree, people do support, but there is a lot of challenges because one's family is there. You have to bring up children, plus you have to also have your career. But keep going. I also had mid-career challenges, sir. I never thought I'll be the Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University. Let me tell you, there I would compliment the present government because I don't have political pull. Neither my husband nor my father had any political pull. I don't come from a political family. I come from a very ordinary middle-class family. And let me tell you, nor did I, have to pay anybody to become. Let me also honestly. So I really congratulate the present government in the central government, which thought that I would do a good job. And maybe because of the Prime Minister's vision on Nari Shakti. I've never met the Prime Minister till today. Let me tell you, I don't know him personally, but I should compliment because, I think that was one of the reasons. And I would tell people hard work, integrity, honesty. It may take you longer, but you will stay longer on the top.
Excellent, ma'am. I think you have given us a good picture of the background and identity which have contributed to where you are today. And in a way, you have connected it also with IKS. Now we come to a question, ma'am. A lot of things we see which have IKS in them. Perhaps, they've not been put the way in which the globe accepts it. So if whether you take it as, maybe yoga much more because of the way it's got popularized. But if you take some of the other things, including Ayurveda, where, today it's called an alternative kind of thing, it's not still mainstream, a lot of objections. Now, if you take some of these things which are actually being practiced and do see results, what do you think are the challenges currently in order to make it an Indian knowledge system, the way it gets accepted as a narrative?
Sir, I think very good question because there is a huge gaps in because unfortunately we did not do this for very long. And I would say, let's say environmental problem. We have a climate crisis. We have severe weather events. The Western concept of nature is to conquer nature for development. Whereas the Indian knowledge perspective is Panchabhutas, harmony and balance. I remember as growing up as a child, my granny always used to tell me, never play with the Panchabhutas. Take them seriously. If they take revenge on you, you won't be alive. And another thing, it makes you humble. You're only a speck. Human beings are not the center of the universe. And that is what Panchabhutas teach you. You are one small speck in the whole cosmos, and other living beings, every being has its own function. And if you change that balance, there will be problems, and human beings will also face problems. And that is something where I would say Indian knowledge systems. And you asked me a good question. How do we connect it? We need people who are multilingual. We have become monolingual, which is not very good. We need to learn our own. You have enough in Telugu, in Tamil. Malayalam is a very Sanskritized language. There may be knowledge systems and, a lot of knowledge that we have not, especially Ayurveda. Kerala is known for one of the best Ayurvedic traditions today. Instead of just glamorizing them, I think it is very important that we make a serious attempt, especially young people who have new ideas. How do we connect these ideas to the present challenges that we are facing today? As I told you, climate crisis. Number 2, stress. I think there is no other better method than in yoga, meditation, or Buddhist mindfulness. We have the yoga, just don't. Overthinking, they think, is a disease. And, we have several methods, but I think these have to be revived. And from school level, be taught, because there is a gap. We have made our school books and other things. We need to keep changing the syllabus with present challenges. And I believe there's a huge amount of work to be done. And that is why I'm very, very emphatic when I tell all scholars that this is a work that cannot be done by a few. It has to be done by young people, because I believe young people have better ideas than I as a person. So I think I'll make them do research. Even in accounting systems, you know that Marwadis have I'm told, a different type of accounting system than what you do in other Western accounts. And their accounts are kept quite well, I'm told. And they do it very differently. And I think they've been doing excellent business. So, or even the Chettiars in the South, how have they been doing? What are these practices? All this is very important, because I think this is something that we have to connect. The data is out there, and we need to, because the West has been doing it very well. Take the West, sir, any idea they have, they theorize well. We don't theorize. And I think that is very necessary. Malayalam sources, any sources. I'm not saying only Sanskrit sources. Any source of knowledge is important, and let us bring it in, and then try to, in a way, have a, what you can say, a clash of ideas as well. Thinking loud. This is something we have to begin. We have a long way to go.
Madam, in your experience, as you have been, thinking about this and fostering it to your communication, are there any major components which you have seen which are giving you results in the fostering of this? You would have tried some projects, some experiments.
Well, we have done this in all our schools. We are not saying that Indian knowledge system. JNU has 14 schools and 10 special centers. We have very good basic science and other science, and as well as social sciences. We have asked each of the schools to make a curriculum bringing in Indian knowledge systems as per whatever the teachers think should be a component. Like, for example, the School of Life Sciences in JNU, they have brought in several of the Indian scientists like J.C. Bose and others who studied plants. J.C. Bose was one of the first to say that plants talk. And if you talk to them, they grow better. At the time, people thought he was crazy. But today, scientists tell you it is true. Or for that matter, you have Subramaniam Chandrasekhar, who brought in the black hole theory through mathematics. And in 1936, when he was going on a ship from India, that is Chennai to London, and he did it at that time. But he didn't get the Nobel Prize because the instruments to prove it came only after 1986. But every student he taught got a Nobel Prize in physics before it. But finally, he did get it. So what I'm saying is, we need to, get these systems back, like Vedic mathematics, sir. See, astrology, you may not believe in it. I'm not saying you should, but the way calculations were done is a very important aspect of doing good calculations. I'm not against artificial intelligence, but I think it is artificial, sir. It has its own limitations. Nothing can replace the human mind. And I think today's young people are, losing their skills of writing, reading, and even maybe thinking. So machines are learning and humans are surfing. And this is bad, because let me tell you, today I don't see any student who can write and good handwriting. And children, they don't want to read. Their span of attention is so less that it's so difficult to, get them more. And even I would say mobile is a good invention if kept in limitation. But, too much of addiction to the mobile also can ruin a human being. Let me tell you, in JNU, I have students who are with depression for nothing, sir. They become so mentally fragile and vulnerable. So I think these things you have to be kept in balance. I'm not against technology. I am for technology, but I'm also for keeping it as a balanced work, as you today say, work-life balance.
Fantastic, ma'am. You've answered some of the other questions that I have. I'll take you to one which, which comes up because of this. Now, you have been in higher education for very long. You've been part of many committees. You've seen many institutions. The momentum in the past has been of a certain type. When you talk about science, when you talk about mindsets, when you talk about faculty, when you talk about professors, when you talk about research, there is a certain way in which things are established. And the momentum in favor of that is very high. So what happens is when you talk about this and when you try to get further into this, how do you change mindsets? How do you influence people to start taking this? You would certainly have faced many such challenges. So can you help us to understand how you, because there would be a sense of skepticism when you just mention it, wouldn't be willing to listen, beyond the first door. How do you tackle this?
You're right. It's going to be difficult because I would say that, those of us who have not grown up with mobiles, we are not so used to it. But those today's generations who are called the millennial and others, it's right. I agree. See, change is always resisted. This is even Buddha, Lord Buddha said it. That, but change is a law of life, whether you like it or not. You also have a Western book written, Who Moved My Cheese, which is literally on the Buddhist philosophy that the water that you see at that moment is different from the water you will see the next moment. Saying that every minute reality changes, whether we like it or not. And I think we need to sensitize people that change is a law of life. Move out of your comfort zone. Do people in management teach students that? Unless you move out of your comfort zone, you're not going to in any way do something big. You must get used to risks and you must be ready for failures. We also say that failures are stepping stones to success. So I think we need to reinvent all this and put it. And I think students do learn it. If you keep repeating it too many times, sir, they will, this is like advertisements. You people are from management. How do you make an advertisement as an impact? You repeat it 2-3 times. The same advertisement is shown. And after some time, what is advertisement? I was told it is to make luxuries look like necessities. The way you do with audiovisual, where you try to change my buying habits by telling me that certain things are very essential for me when it's not really essential, convincing me. In the same way, I think we have to package these ideas in very attractive terms. I agree that, and that is something that we teachers, we peers need to do it, like you have done it in advertising.
Fantastic, ma'am. I think, what I am understanding is that you made a very powerful need statement right in the beginning. And I'm happy that you have kept it there, and it is also evident that the path ahead is not that very clear, though we'll move in that direction. And that we'll need to leverage whatever is there with us, the change which is happening, and the methods of communication in order to get, because the need is to build a narrative, and that certainly is a fact. We will need to build a narrative. No two ways about it. Now, I think what you're also saying is that change is something, and fortunately today the pace of change is far more than what it was perhaps 30 years back. And then that is also an opportunity, and therefore for students, and particularly for students of India, the question then is open-ended question as of now. The question then is, how will this be seen as an opportunity, and how will you attract them to that opportunity? Thank you, ma'am. I'll hand it back to Professor Rao.
Thank you, ma'am. This is a very interesting conversation. A subject like this, which is so vast and which needs actually more time to dwell into some of the concepts itself, because we are on the path to establishing a level of acceptance, where level of acceptance is beating some biases, so on and so forth as well. Because more frequently one is exposed to certain other kinds of philosophies and knowledge systems, and therefore there is bound to be bias, and beating biases require frequent talking, as you said, a parallel to frequency in advertising. That's a fantastic takeaway, actually. So ma'am, while this is extremely interesting, a very, very sharp takeaway and help that we need from you. Top of the mind, what do you think the academia should actually do to actually promote these things, IKS, Indian knowledge systems, to the masses, as well as globally? What role that academia should play?
Good question. I think academia needs first to write things. Please keep writing and publishing, and make your students do research on these areas, because we have to make a beginning. I believe in the Chinese proverb, If you have to climb a mountain, you have to take the first step, and one small step at a time. I agree with you totally. It's very huge. Many of us don't know what we are getting into. It's like a maze, right? As I go, I might discover something new. But all scientific discoveries have come by accident. So in the same way, I think to a very large extent, we need to move ahead, make conjectures. It's not necessary that we have to prove everything. Conjectures are good enough. And maybe after some time, these conjectures can become absolute. Sir, let me tell you, when I took over JNU, we had a perception all over India in 2022 that JNU was an anti-national university. And there's a huge left, they will not allow anybody to come. And the second narrative was anybody coming in from the present government cannot handle higher education. People who are not left are not intellectuals. We are anti-intellectual. This is the thing. I came very polarized campus, and the public perception was that JNU was anti-national to the core. When I took over after 3 months, it took me about 3 to 4 months. But today the perception has changed. And I think it is because I have been keeping on repeating like an advertisement. And it has taken us, sir, do you know, in QS rankings, we have beaten IITs and IIM to the 20th rank. And we are 69 in world. So I think this itself is a change. So I believe that, like Goebbels said, Joseph Goebbels, he read it negatively, for what to say, propaganda. But he said, tell a lie and repeat it 10 times. It becomes the gospel truth. Here, I'm not saying that. I said, tell a fact and substantiate it several times. And I think it will become the gospel truth. So I think even for Indian knowledge system, sir, and I think we must make that first step. Maybe we are shy. I agree with you. Because colonially, there have been other hegemonic cultures that have always said you are inferior, we are superior. It takes a lot of time. So I think we need a counter revolution. And that counter revolution has to be cultural. This even Gramsci said. So, it is something that is very true. And we can make the change. Okay, it's going to be a long journey. I'm not going to say it's going to be overnight. But if we begin now, we will see benefits in the next generation. And maybe the next generation will do. And let me tell you, Indians might win Nobel Prizes if we connect the two, because a lot of originality will come in.
Yeah, fantastic, ma'am. Fantastic. Although the journey looks very ardent and looks longish, we must begin and we must write, publish, and research and make conjectures at this point in time, which may be proven later. These are very, very doable kind of steps. Suggestions for the academia to begin with. Very interesting, ma'am. I have one debate in my mind and I would like to put it out. I am cutting out all the biases in view of the duties that I have for the day. I put my biases at bay. So what I'm trying to say is that epistemology is a very important feature of our Indian knowledge systems. Critical thinking, analysis, questioning, inquiry, so on and so forth. Is that being encouraged currently? Do we have an environment or a situation where there's no question about that it has to be encouraged? But what are the situations, what are the scenarios that we need to eliminate so that we continue to have these questions? Because that's our indigenous feature. That's also part of our IKS. So we need to take it forward. On the other hand, while trying to be very frequently visible about Indian knowledge systems, repeatedly telling them a Goebbels kind of a story, although a Western kind of a concept, how do we apply an Indian nature to it by being the intellectual humility can be displayed while trying to take this to the world? Because the benefits of Indian knowledge system definitely will find its feet for the world as well, not just for India. If we believe that, how do you balance the previous two things that I mentioned?
Well, it's a good question, because in JNU, we have now started work on Mimamsa. Which is seen as a great research methodology as per the Indian knowledge system. How to do research, or even logic, the way we used to debate. Thesis, that is argument for and against, and then there is a synthesis. How these work. Can we use these traditions and try to create research methods? Number one. And for this, we have to work together. So we have been working with Sanskrit scholars and central Sanskrit universities I think, Indians have to get over this habit of being secretive. Somehow, secretive, sir.
Yeah.
We think knowledge has to be only passed on to certain people and not to others. We have to get over that, because I also call my scientists in JNU as Nirmal Anand Research. Meaning I do some research, get money, publish 2 papers, become professor, then I close the lab and go. We are very individualistic. That should stop. For number 2, we have to share knowledge. Let's say with ICFAI, maybe you have brought in something new. Can universities in India have a platform where we share our best experience? This is very important. We are not today sharing, sir. We are working in our own, meaning I have started it with a cluster in Delhi. We are sharing now with Delhi University and Delhi IIT. IIT is just across the road to JNU. So we have said, can we have courses together? And if you have succeeded in something, can you help us out? And in the same way, whatever we have done, can we share with the others? This is something that we should be doing. And we are also gone for now e-learning, where we are putting up some of our unique courses, like the course that got us the number 20th rank, Subject Development Studies, at the world level. We have decided to put it at e-learning level, so that why is it unique and what have we done so different that even globally we have got recognized for that area, which is political science, economics, geography, regional development, as well as sociology. This is so how this has been working. In the same way, you people are doing very well in microfinance and others. I know some people who have studied there who are doing. So is it in some way, can universities like JNU learn? So that I would say that is the way you can spread. And where scholars in different, and even Buddhism, I'll tell you, when I was in Pune University, I worked with one of my professors in philosophy. She was a great scholar on Dharmakirti. So I wanted an understanding of Buddhism. And so we worked on several papers together on the concept of Buddhism with regard to man, with regard to peace, with regard to so many things. So at the time I came, you are right, instead of giving Goebel's example, we can give examples from Jataka tales.
Yes.
Or even I can give you examples, you can give from Tenali Rama of how, public policy and how he worked, or even Birbal, whomever you want. And even there are the Kakatiya kingdom, you had a great queen, Rudramma Devi. Most of people don't know that there were kingdoms south of the Vindhyas, which are as great or longer than the Mughals. And I think this is something where we can pick up things and make these as stories and, recite. And I think that is like, I like a story from Buddhism where a monk, he carried a woman across the river because she couldn't walk. And then he left her there, but his disciple was only thinking about it. About when that night he asked him what to say, the senior monk, he asked him, Bhikkhu, don't you feel guilty? How did you touch a woman when you are a sannyasi? He said, the problem is with your mind, not with me. The minute I left her, I have forgotten about her. You are still keeping it in your mind. So this can give an example for stress, overthinking today. So I think we can, sir, if we, build, and we need to build our common experiences, share, write about them. Maybe we should have blogs also where other professors, let's say you have better examples than me, you use it. So I can use your examples when I teach.
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely. For a gap, we have dug back to see what are the reasons. What were the restrictive practices that we had in the past in terms of restrictive learning, access, so on and so forth. The education or learning was a privilege of a few. That we carry that as well. And therefore, probably that restricted it from getting scaled up. And today, when we sit down and talk about it or think about it, we have not been able to scale it up and take it to the world. So we need to go back and correct it where it was. So our GERs have to go up drastically high, very, very high. Second thing is that template is basically to share. There are several stories that you have explained in a very short span of time just now. Good examples that leave a lasting impact of humanity, of morals, of public policy, solving problems of economic and social nature. All these things, if they are encapsulated in a manner that it can be in a shareable template, that will be the solution. Fantastic, ma'am. Thank you very much for this wonderful response. In view of the paucity of time, what I will do is I will request Professor Mahendra Reddy to ask his question. Professor Mahendra Reddy is the distinguished advisor to the ICFAI Society. I welcome you, sir. Please raise your question.
I want to congratulate you, madam, for an excellent presentation. Fantastic it is. My questions are relating to, you have answered some of them. In so far as mathematics, metaphysics, philosophy, medicine, astronomy, such subjects, there's a lot of literature. But in many other areas, economics, political science, etc., the literature is, because I am referring to how we are going to adopt Indian knowledge system in the universities. You see, what kind of a curriculum you are going to adopt? The UGC regulation says 5% of the total credits in the undergraduate program should be in the Indian knowledge system. And 50% of those credits should be in the area in which a student majors. And one compulsory course should be. Now, what a big challenge it is, because literature is not available. Published journal, you mentioned just now in response to Professor Sudhakar's point, you must publish, but it's not available now. So that's one point. Second point, how you have handled this at JNU in terms of the adopting the UGC regulations. Now, faculty shortage is another great thing, because you are an expert, so you are able to speak so well. But faculty shortage, somebody asked him to go to the class and teach philosophy. Philosophy may be easier, but economics, you see, he may not be able, because he has not been exposed to such articles. And I appreciate the UGC idea of integrating Indian knowledge system with current work which you are teaching in the class. It's a great vision, great idea for the university. Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much, Professor Mahendra Reddy. I agree with you that there are positives, but sir, I'm from political science. And I think in JNU, what we have done is we have allowed schools to decipher their own courses, especially in social sciences. We have done quite well. We can share what we have done. And we have what is called as, zero courses, where we work on material in building material. Because you're right, I agree totally with you. There are no standard textbooks in these areas. I totally agree with you. So that is the biggest challenge that we have. And especially if we have to get it work, you need... so what we have done is we allow the teacher to work on with maybe another teacher from whichever subject to come and help out with them. And then we create cyclo-style sheets or, some sort of thing where we are allowed. JNU has that flexibility. The center or what is the department for us can create its own courses. So there is no one course, one size that fits all. So we are allowing teachers to innovate. And that is how we have introduced, sir. We don't have bachelors, masters we have. And in masters, we are, and even in research, we are making students work on different aspects of these areas. And we realize that students have to be multilingual. This monolingualism doesn't work. And hence, and also ChatGPT and artificial intelligence have made students lazier, sir. They literally copy the essay from ChatGPT. They think the teacher is so stupid, you can't find out. But we can find out. So that is where we have to discourage these type of things. Now in JNU, we have told students you cannot come with a laptop and a mobile to class. It has to be kept out. And we have also started a program in JNU called Read India Read. So we have courses where one textbook is made the entire course. Let's take for economics and politics, the Arthashastra. There are English editions of it available.
Yes.
Or even the Sundara, Shanti Parva. These are areas. So we make students read and do interpretations. This can be a beginning. I agree with you. We cannot have structured courses for the lack of available materials. And hence it is, I agree with also Professor Rao, that we need to broaden our, knowledge systems. And those who know these should freely give it, or online. or even YouTube classes, or even this different aspects of it can be done. But I agree with you. Yes, we are having in JNU, sir, we have started with reading of texts in economics, politics, and sociology. We are using the Arthashastra, Krishna as a great diplomat in international relations, and the Shanti Parva. Can we see Lord Krishna as a great diplomat, as a strategist, the way he managed the Kauravas and the Pandavas in a war? So we are trying to look at it, and we are asking students to do their tutorials, write research papers and tutorials and class assessments on this. This is what we are doing. Maybe we can share whatever we are doing. But again, I agree with you, long way to go.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. What we'll do is we will take a risk of taking one more question, although we are beyond time. With permission of ma'am, we'll do that. Rudranik Biswas, would you like to open mic and speak? Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening, ma'am. Thank you so much for your expertise in this matter. My question would be that currently the government of India spends around 2.8 to 3% as its education budget. But as per the NEP's report of 2024, they have suggested at least a minimum of 6% of budget allocation. Do you think that government of India is limited to just the planning phase and fails to execute the same? So there is a direct societal impact in terms of access to quality education.
Professor Bishwas, I agree with you. I'm one of the proponents. This from the Radhakrishnan committee report, Sarvepalli Radha and Kothari report, have been saying that we should increase it to 6%. I would go beyond NEP 2020 and say it should go to 10%. The example I would give of South Korea and China, which more or less started with India, but they gave 15% of their GDP to education. And that makes a huge, and I am one who believes that the state in a country like India, where there's huge inequalities of both access, availability, the state has to play the role. It cannot shirk its responsibility. And if whoever becomes the prime minister, if they want India to become a global power, Vikasit Bharat, Amrit Kal, whatever you call it, education is a must. And I agree with you, quality education is a must. And if you're really following IKS, after Matru Devo, Baba Pitru Deva, it is Acharya Devo. So if you do not respect teachers, do not give employment, pay them well, I think we are not a knowledge civilization, because we are a civilization that worships knowledge in whatever form. So I agree totally with you. Any government that has its feet in reality has to spend 10% of its budget. I'm not even going for 6. I've been continuously telling the government of India, all your schemes will fail if you do not put your mouth where you have to do it, because money has to be spent. See South Korea today, or even China. We are not doing it systematically, and it is very, very important that we do it. And otherwise, we will be, as you rightly said, there'll be a huge gap. We'll only be talking about these things and nothing much will be done.
Great, ma'am. Thank you very much. So that comes from the Vice Chancellor of JNU, the #1 university in this country, that the government must spend 10% of the budget on higher education. Super. Dr. Anita, would you like to very briefly ask your question? We don't have much time left.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Anita. Thank you for a fantastic session. It was really very, very helpful in nurturing our thoughts. My question is that you were talking about the unlearning of our own upbringing, wherein there's a lot of preconditioning that has happened with the mind, wherein everyone is feeling that they are inferior to someone and someone else is superior. So this has a lot of preconditioning that has come in. So what is your suggestion to undo this, or what practices do you think that we must do so that this happens quickly? That's my query. And second one is knowledge is power, You said power is knowledge. If you could just throw a bit light on that, that would be helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Anita. Thank you so much. I think basically, as you what to said, how do we condition? First is decolonize the Indian mind. We are still in a colonial mentality. That is because of several years that we think that we are inferior. I think we are as good as anybody else. I wouldn't say superior. Swami Vivekananda was one of the great modernizers who said that we are the most superior civilization, and he even contested it. And that's why he has become a great Renaissance figure. Or even if you see Dayananda Saraswati, you have a lot of, or even Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, who wrote The Hindu Way of Life, a small booklet. I would tell many students that it is necessary we introduce them. And even at home, I think even if I go to an English medium school, see, I studied in a convent, madam. So when I came home, my father used to decolonize my mind every day. So I think as parents, we have a huge responsibility. And I think today we should not give gadgets to kids. I'm not against gadgets, but I think it is very important that parents, or I don't know whether we still have joint families, but at least parents should give it. I had my grandmother with me, so that made a huge difference. Even if she was illiterate, I think she taught me more than what my teachers would teach me. I told you, when she always used to tell me in Telugu, never play with the Panchabhutas, especially fire, water. She says never, and she used to taught me even frugality with these. She said fire is both constructive, but fire, when it's destructive, it can finish anybody. So these type of small teachings, today I understand the importance. So I think that is important. Decolonize the mind. There is nothing else, because I would go with this saying that even wars are created in the minds of human beings. And it is in the mind that we have to create of peace. This is my first response to you. The second question you asked me was on Michael Foucault's. This is also, I think, Indian philosophy. We used to say knowledge is power. That is, if you have knowledge, you can have everything. But the Western philosophy, you know, Michael Foucault was a postmodernist. He said, if you have power, that is economic, political power, you can create your own knowledge. Meaning, he said what I have been saying, that if India wants to be an economic and political power, you need to create original knowledge systems that make you unique. And if you want to stay there, see, today, America is a declining power. But still, we are so influenced by the American knowledge that they have created, which says that they are superior to us. Please, so if you see, that is what I'm saying. It is knowledge that has a lasting effect. For example, you take their music or even their books. We still, let's say, in management, in international relations, most of the modern subjects, it's American textbooks we use, American thinkers we use, Western thinkers. In the same way, that is what I meant, that power is knowledge. He simply changed it. He said, if you want to remain in power, even after you are done with, knowledge will keep you in that power. Today, America is a declining power. It is not a global power. Today, I would say China, Russia, and America are equal. But America still has more influence than the other two because it dominates knowledge systems.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Anita. That's a wonderful conversation, ma'am. I think several points that you touched, even in the last capsule, is about decolonizing our minds, learning from our grandmothers, like the way you have done. Don't play with the Panchabhutas. You know, there is a lesson for dealing with climate change, sustainability, so on and so forth. Frugality, which you explained just now. Learning frugality is an amazing discipline in itself towards optimizing the resources that we have and still pursue excellence within the frugal resources. Amazing. Power is knowledge and knowledge is power. But ultimately, you're saying it is the knowledge that we need to establish. The growth story of India should be fired by the Indian knowledge systems, apart from others, is the main proposition of this conversation. And that's amazing. In terms of establishing India as a rising power, we will have to have the economic power and the political power on the way. And eventually, it is the knowledge that will continue that power last for a very, very long time. Otherwise, declining powers will come if you don't have knowledge. Civilizations have receded if they did not have any lasting knowledge to fire it up, fuel it up. I think there are lessons for us being the most ancient civilization in the current context of discussion, 8,000 years. And at the same time, connecting the past to the present is a lesson that we need to take up, and then harness the Indian knowledge systems to surge ahead and rise. That's an amazing session, ma'am. Very different from what we usually do. Today is 152, and none other than the esteemed scholar like you has powered this discussion. We are very, very thankful to you for joining us. And I want to also thank Professor Prasad and all of the members. Professor Prasad, would you have any point to make, or shall we close it?
Yeah, I think I have some very convincing arguments, which I perhaps did not have in the beginning.
Okay.
About this. And from what Madam has said, I think, our texts themselves have said that power needs to lie with the right set of people. So if there is a civilization which has got a good lot of learning, which can be passed on to society at large, very solid principles, and if that civilization is rising to economic power, it is well in order that the right dharma passes on with them, which is what I think one of the arguments that Krishna used to put the Pandavas in power. So I think that's a very solid argument. It's a moral argument. I mean, it may not be research driven or anything, but it's a very solid moral argument. I think you've backed it up with the very positive thing that you need to start with culture, because it is a soft which gets into the hard. As we said in our previous session, culture eats strategy. So you need to start with culture, and you have targeted the right area in terms of practices. So the simple thing that I could take is the blog. I mean, it may not be research articles to begin with, but certainly there are people who are able to interpret and then put it across. And that, if it starts increasing, then perhaps it will go into layers. So these are three very solid takeaways that I have from the session, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
On two things, sir. Take India is the only civilization that is continuous other than China. Many civilizations have perished, including Greek, Roman, and I think that is because of our knowledge base. And as Sir rightly said, we do, I think, to a large extent, this continuity with change is something that we have. And I think that is what has helped us to be still alive despite all threats to be otherwise, and that itself should give us a lot of courage to go forward.
Awesome ma'am, thank you very much. Also, we should not forget multilingualism, to search for the indigenous knowledge systems in different languages. That's where our strength lies. Our strength lies in diversity, but also it should be very, very honest when we are trying to harness these indigenous knowledge systems across different diverse languages that we have in different states. We got to be so rich if we had harnessed possible knowledge systems from various states, various languages. It is so deep and so convincing, actually. Thank you, ma'am. I think today's conversation is wonderful. We are going to go home with wonderful learning that we have had from you. And I thank everyone for joining us and asking these questions. Just one bit. Indian knowledge systems are about spiritual teachings, philosophies, and approaches of health also, like Ayurveda and yoga, as you have explained. It includes mathematics, astronomy, and science. And in astrology, the calculations part, which you stressed, is very interesting to take home. The concept of zero, that's very, very interesting. And then somewhere it has to be linked to the shunya. Philosophically, it reinforces whatever you have learned. World across, there are three things that worked. Knowledge, when it is scaled up, when it is accessible to a large number of people, inventions do happen. For example, the knowledge of a potter passed on to non-potters will probably bring in an intersection and therefore inventions. The restriction probably was one that we need to work on and liberate that into becoming a scalable kind of knowledge for all of us to actually flourish and then take it to the world. The goodness is already there, but we need to find a mechanism to take it to the world. Whether it is in terms of arguments or polemics, whether it is in terms of evidence-based learning or in terms of your experiential learning. In all the three forms, whatever we have amassed as knowledge, we need to scale it up and share. Your suggestion of template is to write research template blogs, so on and so forth, comes very handy in this point. And this is a wonderful takeaway for us on our journey to making Indian knowledge systems widely acceptable. We know the gaps, and we also have some kind of a roadmap. We need to labor on that to make it work. Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much. I want to say Jai Hind to you. Take care. And by the time we meet next time with all our participants, we would have had a new government in place. We will form the government, whoever it is. It's our government. And we will meet you on June 7th with yet another interesting ace photographer who is going to talk about the power of visual storytelling and how we can convey messages and emotions through photography. He's a lawyer from Chennai, but he's a hobbyist photographer. Let's look forward to having that wonderful conversation on 7th of June, 6:30 p.m. Till then, keep learning about Indian knowledge systems and also a little bit about the excellence of academic institution that JNU is, and research a little bit about Professor Santishree Pandit. It's wonderful. She learns so many languages. She's a proponent of multilingualism. I think we need to also try and learn a couple of languages more and see what is the beauty that is lying in there. Happy weekend and good night to all of you.